Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I'm extremely honored to welcome Her Grace Narayani Mathaji to ISKCON Scarborough. So Mother joined ISKCON in 1970 and she's been performing various services in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And Mother has also been part of the VIHE, Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education in Vrindavan, teaching Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava and Bhakti Vedanta courses. And Mother also inputs a lot of things into the curriculum as well. And Mother has also compiled 3 wonderful books, and 2 of the books are here. So we at ISKCON Scarborough will be making some arrangements to get some of these books here. Wonderful books, I have them at home as well. This is Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance, and then Bhagavad Gita at a glance. And then Mother was also explaining that there are more books coming, individual cantos as well. Amazing books. So we'll arrange to get some books and we'll make it available here for the devotees. Hare Krishna. So again, on behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, please warmly welcome Mother. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak about Srila Prabhupada. As Prabhuji mentioned, I joined ISKCON in 1970, and actually I feel it was due to the pushing of Srila Prabhupada that I actually took the step to become a devotee. I had been coming to the temple for about 5 months in 1970, and I was reading all the books, chanting Hare Krishna, following the principles, more or less, and yeah, so it was not easy for me to take the final step. In those days, to be a devotee meant you had to leave everything and live in the temple. That's how it was in the 70s. You could not live outside. Now mostly everybody is outside, and not so many in the temple. In those days, everybody was in the temple and nobody was outside. 1 or 2 maybe exceptions to the rule. So one weekend, they said, why don't you stay overnight? Srila Prabhupada is coming. Now my husband, he was not as interested as I was, so he didn't stay. I went and stayed. And then the time came for Prabhupada, and he phoned up and he said, actually I'm not able to come, but I'm sending 4 sannyasis instead. One of those sannyasis was Vishnu Jan Maharaj, and he took us out on Harinam, morning till night. And it was so wonderful. After the Harinam, I thought, I'm so happy here, why should I go back home? So I went home and said goodbye to my husband, and I joined the temple. And actually my husband joined 2 months later. He was interested, but it took him a little bit longer to be convinced about Krishna consciousness. And also I was his financial support, and when I joined, he didn't have any financial support. So he also joined too. That was perhaps another factor. So how did Prabhupada make me join? So I was hesitant to take that final step of just becoming a full-time devotee. And Prabhupada, just by his saying he would come, he didn't even come, just by saying he would come, he pushed not only myself, 4 or 5 others stayed in that weekend, and none of us went back home. We all became full-time devotees. None of us went back home after that weekend, and I feel it was due to Prabhupada's pushing that we all became devotees at that time. So then we were in the Boston temple. The program, when I first joined, we didn't have to go to Mangalarti. We would just sleep. But we were out on Harinam till 10, 11 at night. Yeah. So we were chanting. We were so happy. As Prabhupada said, chant and be happy. And we had so much happiness just in chanting and dancing the whole day and whole night that we forgot even who we were, we forgot our bodies. We had hardly any contact with our bodies. And we could not, in one time somebody asked me, "Are you sick? You look sick." I said, "Yeah, maybe I have a fever, or maybe it's ecstatic symptoms." That's how we were in those days. We couldn't tell what we were going through at that time. So Prabhupada was very merciful. We had a wonderful temple. The president was Satsrup Maharaj. The Harinam Sankirtan leader was Giriraj Maharaj. Temple commander was Hridayananda Maharaj. Interior decorator was Bhavananda Maharaj. And the press in charge was Jayadoita Maharaj. So it was an amazing temple. All the artists were there. The whole press was there. So it was very difficult not to join that temple in such a wonderful association that we had there. So 6 months later, after being in the temple, our temple president, Satsrup Maharaj, said to us, "I'm sending you to Florida." Now we were in Boston. Boston is the top, and Florida is the bottom. So how did he send us to Florida? Not by plane, not by train, not by bus. He put us on the highway. We had to hitchhike. That was the main form of transportation for devotees in the 70s. We had to hitchhike, and we were quite a sight because in those days devotees wore either saffron sheets or yellow sheets. No saris or dhotis. It was all like long cloth that we would buy at the market. So we were in our yellow sheets on the road and hitchhiking, and we did get a ride. So then after 6 months, the standard was you could get initiation from Srila Prabhupada if you lived in the temple for 6 months. So after 6 months, I asked my president, "So can I get initiated?" He said, "Okay, wait 2 more months for your husband." 8 months. I said, "Okay." I waited 8 months. I said to my husband, "Let's get initiated." He said, "I'm not ready." I said, "Okay, I'm not waiting any longer. I'm going to get initiated." So I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada. In those days, we had to write a letter to Prabhupada, and we had to make our own beads. There were no beads. We had to get the beads from a wood shop and string them together and send them. So I sent my beads to Prabhupada. He was in India. And along with the letter, and the letter I said, I quoted Bhagavatam's 2nd canto, "If you don't get the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee, then you're like a dead body." So I said, "Prabhupada, if you don't initiate me, I'll be just like dead." So he initiated me, and so he wrote me a letter back, and he chanted on my beads and sent them back with a letter. And in the letter, he said, "Your first birth is from your material father and mother, but your real birth is from your spiritual master." And he gave me 6 instructions, of which I've followed 5 so far, of the 6. So the first one was to chant at least 16 rounds. Second, follow strictly the regulative principles. And the third was to do deity worship. And fourth was to do Sankirtan, preaching. Fifth was to read and study all my books. So in my life, I do all of them at the same time, but I was concentrating on one or the other. Like in the 70s, I was the pujari in Radha Govinda Temple in Calcutta. My husband and I both. Then in the 80s, I was doing book distribution, Sankirtan, in Juhu, Bombay, Maharashtra, and Gujarat and Rajasthan, traveling. And then after that, reading and studying all the books. Of course, I was a mother in between. I have a son, Govinda. In the late 80s, early 90s. Then in 94, I went to Vrindavan and started teaching in the VIHE, reading and studying all the books. So 5 instructions I've followed, but the 6th is still to come, and that is to be engaged 24 hours a day. And so maybe when I get older, after 70, then I can go have a bhajan or something and just think of Krishna 24 hours. Of course, now it's almost 24, but not quite yet. So, the first time I met Srila Prabhupada, of course I got the letter, initiation letter first, and then after that I met him in Gainesville, Florida. And it's written about in Prabhupada Lilamrita, this remote corner of the world. So it was, Prabhupada was saying it's such a remote corner. And he gave a lecture at the University of Florida, and he gave some television programs as well, and we were there at the programs. So he actually, the first time I saw him was at the airport in Gainesville. And the devotees were bringing this huge Vyasa-san in the air, into the airport. They were struggling, 10 or 15 devotees, to carry this huge Vyasa-san, and struggling very hard. So Prabhupada just took one look at it, and he was disgusted, and he wouldn't even sit on the Vyasa-san, actually. Thought it was so we were very crazy in those days. We did crazy things. Well, when I first saw Srila Prabhupada, I was following behind him, and I felt that for the first time in my life, I felt very secure. And I felt like I belonged. Here is some place I belonged. And I felt that I can follow Srila Prabhupada for the rest of my life. Like, this is something I can do now. When I was a child in school, when I was 10 years old, I was looking around at the children, and I felt that actually I'm not American. I'm not one of these, I'm not like these children. I thought maybe I'm from another country, or maybe I'm from another planet. But one thing I know is I'm not American. So when I met Srila Prabhupada, when I started following behind him, then I felt, okay, this is who I am. I belong to Srila Prabhupada. I belong to him. So after that, in 1972, Srila Prabhupada asked for 50 devotees to go to India. So from every temple they were choosing different devotees to go to India. And from our temple, my husband and I, we were chosen to go to India. And as we had the same temple president, he says, I'm sending you to India. And we thought, oh no, how are we going to get to India now? Anyway, we made it to New York, and then in New York we collected on the street, and within 3 weeks we got our airfare, one-way ticket, $300 each to Bombay. And we didn't go back. Prabhupada said to us, you go to India. He didn't tell us to go back, so we didn't go back. We stayed in India. Out of 25 devotees that went, 5 stayed out of that bunch. So in India it was very austere. In Juhu, Bombay, the men were living in a hut which was the men's ashram, the kitchen, the prasadam room, and everything all in one. And the ladies were on the roof of a building, the tenants building, very austere, in the summer it was. So it was very difficult conditions, and even one of our sannyasis complained to Prabhupada, oh, it's too difficult, we cannot live like this. And Prabhupada said, don't you want to become purified? And so then, what can we say? But we knew that he was performing more austerities than we were. So, the first time in India, then after 2 weeks we were sent to Calcutta. Calcutta was also austere, but at least we had a roof over our head. I was happy about that. There was no electricity and water most of the time, but we did have a roof. And we became pujaris in Calcutta temple, Radha Govinda. But the first time I saw Prabhupada in India was in Vrindavan. He was giving lectures in Radha Damodar temple on nectar of devotion. And Prabhupada, when he was giving lectures in Vrindavan, he was citing verses from Nectar of Devotion, how devotional service is for everyone. It doesn't mean you have to be born in India, or you have to be a certain caste or creed. It's for everyone, east or west, because Krishna is the father of everyone. So everyone can do devotional service. And it doesn't matter if you're from America or Canada or Europe. You are all entitled to do devotional service to Krishna. He was trying to convince the Brajavasis that we were Vaishnavas. Even though we were not Indians, we came from the West. Prabhupada was trying to convince him in those Nectar of Devotion lectures, because this is the essence of our philosophy in Nectar of Devotion, that who is qualified to perform devotional service, and that is anyone who has taken a human birth. He's qualified. And we see examples like nowadays Lord Ram's Lila. Not only human beings were doing devotion, even monkeys were doing devotional service to Lord Ram, Lord Ramchandra. So even monkeys are accepted by the Lord. He does not look at your outside dress. He looks at your heart. He looks how you want to serve him, what you want to give to him. So that is our Blessed Lord. And Ramchandra, he's very, very merciful, because he said, if you just once say, I surrender to you, then I will give you full protection. So this is the blessing of Lord Ram. Now it is his time. His time is coming on Tuesday. So somehow he came, I had to speak about him. So in Vrindavan, again, austerities. Everywhere is austere. In the beginning of the movement, we had to undergo austerities, but we were young and it was like an adventure for us. It was quite interesting to live in India, and we were living in Keshigot on the first floor, and the bathroom was on the top floor, and then we had to go down and bring up from the well bucket. So of course we had dysentery, so it wasn't easy to do. Run down, run up, and many times we were with Prabhupada, so we didn't care. As long as we were with Prabhupada. If we were with Prabhupada, then we feel like, okay, we're safe, we're secure, we're protected. So right from the first day, I felt that protection just by following Srila Prabhupada. Now in Vrindavan, how many of you have visited Vrindavan? Anybody here has visited Vrindavan? Okay. So Vrindavan is famous for monkeys. Now, and it's no different when Prabhupada was here. One time we were sitting in his room, and Prabhupada was sitting on his asana, and there was a bunch of bananas at his feet. So one monkey ran in, grabbed the bananas, and ran out the door. And Prabhupada said, just see how intelligent the monkey is. None of you would ever dare to do that. He said, but the monkey is intelligent for eating. So you should not be intelligent like the monkey, just for eating. As we know in our philosophy, there are 5 levels of realization. The first one is called anamaya. That is realization through food. If you see a small baby, he's on this level of anamaya. To him, food is everything. All he's thinking is about food. And if he wants to know what something is, he will put it in his mouth and to see and taste it. Is this food? And if it's not food, then he'll throw it. So this is the first level so the monkeys are on this level of food. Another thing happened in Vrindavan. One time in the darshan of Srila Prabhupada picked me out, singled me out from the rest of the devotees. And he said, my sister tells me that you speak Bhagavatam very nicely. Now, I was completely puzzled, because I never spoke Bhagavatam, what to speak it nicely. So I was trying to think, what did his sister mean? I was thinking back, oh yes, okay. On Janmashtami Day in Calcutta, the tradition in those days for devotees was to start at the beginning of the day and read the Krishna book from morning till night. We all would take turns. There were only 10 of us. So my turn came, and I think my only audience was Prabhupada's sister. In those days, the temple was just a small temple, nobody was coming. So I was reading Krishna book, and she was sitting in front of me. I was reading in English, and she only knew Bengali. But I was being so dramatic. I was saying, and Krishna left the rasa dance, and the gopis were crying, and she started crying. And she didn't know any English, but she started crying and crying when she heard that part of the Krishna book. So she told Prabhupada, she speaks Bhagavatam very nicely. I was just reading Krishna book. But one lesson I learned from that is that if the words come out from the mouth of a pure devotee, they must come true. 30 years later, I started speaking Bhagavatam. So, because Prabhupada, he said, she speaks Bhagavatam. And I never thought in my life I'm going to speak Bhagavatam, but it just happened that I started teaching in the VIHE, Srimad Bhagavatam. So for 9 years, Burijan and myself, we taught from 1st canto to 12th canto in Vrindavan, Srimad Bhagavatam. So two things happened in my life like this, 2 predictions which I never thought about but which came true, and that was the first one that happened in Vrindavan. The second one happened in Mayapur. And that's what I'm doing now. Also, both of these things I'm doing now. Now, Prabhupada, we used to meet Prabhupada because we were living in Calcutta. And Mayapur is close to Calcutta, so when Srila Prabhupada would come to visit Mayapur, he would first go to Calcutta, and then he would go to Mayapur. And then when he would leave Mayapur, he would go to Calcutta also. So we would see Prabhupada every time he would go to Mayapur. So in 1973, that was 1972 in Vrindavan. 1973 he came to Calcutta, and he also gave nectar devotion classes in Calcutta too. And his Sanskrit editor was traveling with him, Pradyumna Swami, and he remembered me from Boston, because he was there in Boston. And because the first day I joined the temple, I knew how to type, and typing was a very valuable service, because the press was in Boston, and we had to type the Bhagavad Gita as it is for Macmillan. We were typesetting the Bhagavad Gita. Now, we had this huge machine, we didn't have computers or anything, so typesetting meant there's this huge, 5-foot tall machine, And you would make a rough copy first, and you would type it, and you type one line. At the end of the line, there would be a number and a letter, like C4. So at the end of each line, you would see what the number and letter is, and you would type it C4, B5. Then when you do the final copy, you would type on photographic paper. It would give us the final, and that would be used for printing. And then before we would type the line, we'd have to set the machine, okay? C4, and then B5, and it would come out straight. And that was typesetting. Now, besides doing that, we had to transliterate from the Sanskrit to the English for Macmillan while we were typing. So the first day I joined the temple, they said, okay, you have to learn how to read Sanskrit now because you're going to be typing Bhagavad Gita. So they gave me the Ishopanishad, and they said, see, here's the Sanskrit, here's the English. Now you read the Sanskrit and you type it in English. So he remembered me from Boston. And one day I learned. I had to type the same day, what to do. Prabhupada gave an order. We didn't think, oh, how am I going to read Sanskrit? I only know English. We just did it, just do it. Like, how can I go to India? No, we didn't question. People asked me, what inspired you to go to India? And I said, well, Prabhupada said go, so I went. It was the order of the spiritual master. We had very strong faith in Srila Prabhupada. He told us that impossible is a word in the fool's dictionary. And we were all expected to do impossible things. Like my husband and I, after we were devotees for 1 year, we were kicked out to start our own temple. That was the process. You learn how to cook a few, rice dal sabji, and you learn how to chant Hare Krishna and Harinam and sell white BTG, and out you go and start your own temple. So here I was in Calcutta, and I was doing pujari work. Pradyumna saw me. He said, oh, how would you like to go with Srila Prabhupada to Mayapur? I said, yes. He says, oh, Prabhupada is translating Chaitanya Charitamrita, so now you have to learn how to read Bengali. We're leaving tomorrow. I said, no problem. I'm coming with Prabhupada. We'll do anything to be with Srila Prabhupada. Just anything, because just to be with Prabhupada, you feel like you're in the spiritual world. You feel like you're in Burijan Prabhu, and he was telling how he was with Prabhupada many times before he ever went into the deity room with the deities. And he said the first time he went into the deity room, he felt the same way as if when he was in Prabhupada's presence. So what does that mean? Prabhupada was bringing Krishna with him. And that's why we felt so protected, so secure when we were with Srila Prabhupada. So here, okay, I'm in Calcutta, and he gave me this Bengali book. It's a different script from Sanskrit. It's a whole different alphabet. So I learned to read Bengali, and off I was the next day. Srila Prabhupada. Now in Mayapur, another austere scene. We were living in the Lotus building, which was not the Lotus. It was under construction at the time, and far from being Lotus, there were holes in the wall which were future windows, and there were doors without handles. So, and the ladies' ashram, we had no door. So we had to go through the next room to get to the door, but the next room had no floor, and that was on the first floor. So it was like a 4-foot drop, and we had to walk across this plank to get to the door every time. So that gives you an idea of how we were living. We had bathrooms, but there were no pipes yet installed. So we couldn't use the bathrooms, of course. We had to go some godforsaken field somewhere in the middle of the night. And we would have our shower right in the veranda. So it was austere again. And I was typing, and they gave me this ancient typewriter, manual typewriter. No electricity, of course. And so manual means that you type and then you have to smack it every time you come to the end. You type and smash, type, smash. And half the keys weren't working, and so that's why maybe there were so many mistakes in the books. But so there I was, sitting on the ground floor in one room, and not the ladies' ashram, in another room. and I had the earphones of the dictaphone, and I had this big Bengali Chaitanya Charitamrita open, complete Bengali. So I would hear Prabhupada say the Bengali, I would read it in Bengali, and I would type it in English, Roman letters. So one day, Prabhupada, he used to walk up and down the balcony and to see what we were doing. So one day he looked in my hole in the wall, which was supposed to be a window, and he saw me with this huge Bengali book. And so he said, "Oh, you know Bengali?" I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." Even though I just learned the day before. And he said, "Oh, very good editor. Come to my room." So I went to his room, and he said, "You know Bengali?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." So he said, "So, you should learn how to type in Bengali typewriter, and we will do many books together." So that was the second thing he said. So I had visions, oh, I'm going to travel with Srila Prabhupada, but it never happened. Because in Calcutta, all the pujaris all of a sudden left the temple because they got a new temple president. His name was Garga Muni. And he had a reputation, they were all afraid of him. So I had to go back and become the head pujari in Calcutta. That was Krishna's mercy. So then, okay, he said, learn to type in Bengali. So one Bengali brahmachari, Sachidananda, he was teaching me how to type in Bengali, typewriter. And I said to him, look, you don't have to look at the keys. You just remember where the keys are, and you look at the paper, and then you type. Like I was teaching him in English, I was touch typing, call it touch typing. So in Bengali you do. He said, oh, now I understand what Srila Prabhupada told me. Prabhupada told me, you teach her and you learn from her also. So I was teaching him touch typing in Bengali. Those were interesting days. So, in Mayapur, I did transcribe the tapes of the whole Navadvip Lila of Lord Chaitanya from chapter 13 to 17 in the Adi Lila, whole Navadvip Lila in Mayapur, hearing it directly from Srila Prabhupada. So that was wonderful. Krishna's mercy, Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And then I was ready to become the head pujari of Calcutta Temple. And sometimes Prabhupada would come and I would type for him while I was in the temple, Calcutta also. I remember one, I was typing Canto 5, Prayers of Lakshmi Devi. And the first prayer, Om Ram Hrim Hrum Om Namo Bhagavate Rishikeshaya, and then she glorifies Krishna in so many ways, how he's the master of intelligence, the master of the senses. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, this verse is a very special mantra, and devotees should learn it to become fixed, to become pure devotees. So I said, wow, Prabhupada's giving me a mantra. So I played it about 5 times, saying the mantra. So I'm getting a mantra from Prabhupada. That's how I felt. And so I played it many, many times, and then I learned it. So, okay, this is nice. So, 5th canto, 18th chapter, maybe around verse 18 or so, like that. It's around that. It's after Prahlad. Prahlad is around verse 12. 5, 18, 12, and then Lakshmi comes after Prahlad in the prayers in the 5th canto. Yeah, it's the first prayer of Lakshmi Devi. Wonderful prayer. How Krishna is the master of your senses, your intelligence, your mind, and everything. What a beautiful, beautiful prayer. So, meanwhile, in Calcutta, I was Pujari, and Prabhupada would often come. Of course, he was there for darshan. One time I was doing Mangalarti, so my schedule was 20 hours a day, puja. I was doing most of the artis, Mangalarti, 12 o'clock arti, 4 o'clock arti, evening arti, waking up at deities at 3:30, and putting them, and dressing them morning, dressing them night, putting them to sleep, taking care of Tulsi. So it was full-time engagement. And if somebody didn't show up, then I'd have to do their service as well. So one time I was doing Mangalarti. And in Calcutta at that time, there was practically no separation between the deities. It's like here, I think, just like there was just a chain across that separated us, the pujari, from the people. So one time I was doing the Mangalarti to the deities. I turned around with a ghee lamp, and there was Prabhupada right behind me. And I thought, I just got stunned. I said, okay, should I offer him the ghee lamp or should I do puja? What am I supposed to do? So I think I did a really quick puja and then gave him the ghee lamp. And then for the whole, he was standing right behind me watching me. I was very nervous, and it was the most attentive arti I ever did in my life. And after that, I thought, I should do all my service like that. That Prabhupada standing right behind me watching me, what I'm doing. So I learned many lessons. That was as pujari. Another time, one thing that was happening in Calcutta Temple, behind the deities there was an open window. Now they put in the AC, so it's different, but you saw the fresh air used to come in. Not only the fresh air, birds would come in, and they would fly around during Bhagavatam class, and bees would come in. Now the bees were really special. We had two altars, Radha Govinda, Gaur Radha Govinda. We had the first Lord Chaitanya in the movement, Gauranga Radha Govinda, and then we had Jagannath. Two altars. So on Radha Govinda's altar, big bumblebees were coming, because we had an opulence of flowers in Calcutta. Every day I would buy 144 lotuses, 144 roses, big lotuses, like your head, and they were very fragrant. So the bumblebees would come and sit in the lotus. Well, I would put one on Krishna's foot and they'd sit in the lotus and they'd eat the nectar of the lotus. So in Radha Govinda's side, two bumblebees would come. They would circumambulate the deities and go on the lotuses. And in Jagannath's side, small bees would come and they would just sit on the garlands of Jagannath. So I was reading third canto and I was reading how the bees are sitting on the garlands. I said, wow, it's just like the spiritual world. The bees are sitting on the garlands. And Bhagavatam says they're chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, so who knows? If you've ever been in a temple where everybody, lots and lots of devotees are chanting japa, it sounds like bees. So who knows? Prabhupada one time on a morning walk in New York, he said, he heard some birds chirping. He said, oh, they're chanting Hare Krishna. So he said, really? They're chanting? Probably sounds like it to me. So, yeah, we had these bees. So Prabhupada commented on the bees. He said, if the bees are coming to the deities, that means Krishna is pleased with worship. Now, not only did we have lots of flowers, we had 50 garlands every day, donated by one rich man. So I used to change the flowers 5 times a day in Calcutta. And he really he appreciated the flowers decoration. I put garlands everywhere. I would change the garlands. They would have garlands at Mangalarti, garlands at Darshan Arti, and then again I would change at 4 o'clock Arti, Shayan Arti, and then when they would go to sleep. So 5 times. So 50 garlands, and the most wonderful garlands, 4 kinds of champa. There's two shades of yellow champa, and what they were saying, one was a little darker shade, that's Radharani's color, and there was a little lighter yellow, they said that's Gauranga's color. The Bengalis would say, very, very, extremely fragrant. And we had mogra, we had jasmine, rose, everything, all the flowers, gardenia. And we had a really nice flower man who used to make crowns for the deities. So every day was a festival of flowers. It didn't matter if it was a festival or not, we had flowers, lots of flowers. So Prabhupada appreciated, if you walk in the temple, just the scent of the flowers would be enough to make you in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada appreciated that aspect. Every lecture he would give in Calcutta, he would mention the deities usually. Sometimes he would start Shivigrahara, Tana Nityanana. He would just talk about the deities. And he said to us that this deity worship is being conducted by Srimati Radharani under her direction. So I'm sure that goes for all deity worship. It's being conducted under the direction of Srimati Radharani. But he told us that in Calcutta. Very austere again, no milk. So one year Prabhupada told us, you don't have to do Chaturmasa, you already don't have milk. So, and he said that in lecture, I know you're not even getting milk. He was very concerned. Because in those days in India there was no milk, there was no cow, it was all buffalo. Now we can get cow's milk in Vrindavan. That's Ramesh Baba's ashram. He has a goshala and we get milk from there. Otherwise it's contaminated. So yeah, it was quite austere. So Prabhupada, one time, about the deities, sometimes he would chastise us and sometimes he would praise us. So one time, a couple of times he chastised us. One time both of the times were for uncleanliness. The first time was when the ghee lamps, we had these big 5-foot ghee lamps, 4 foot, 5 foot, because the lights were always going out and we had to light the ghee lamps and candles. So one time he saw the ghee lamps, he says, why are these ghee lamps so dirty? Who has done this? He called us up and we had to face him. I thought he should have said, who has not done this? But anyway, yeah, he went to just disappear and you can't disappear. You just have to stand there and take the chastisement. Another time it was Darshan Arti. And we had these wooden doors. And Prabhupada came for darshan, so we didn't have time to open the doors and keep the curtains closed and clean. So when they opened the curtains, there were some 3-4 flower petals on the floor. Prabhupada said, why is it so dirty? And so my husband went up, he said, negligence? Oh, that was the wrong thing to say. And Prabhupada said, negligence. He was really angry. But then he also praised us many times. And one time, the artist Pushkar was at the temple. He came to me and he said, Srila Prabhupada would like to have a picture of Radha Govinda for me to take. He said, you should paint Krishna like that, very young. I saw Krishna about 11 years old. So he was always very young as Govinda. Very, very young. Prabhupada liked that. He didn't like him to be over 16. Some of the pictures you get from India, Radharani looks really old and Krishna looks old, and usually Radharani looks much like his mother almost, but Prabhupada liked them very young. Kishori. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, very young age. So, now when he praised us one time, it was Darshanarti, and people had been giving me so many garlands and I was putting them all over, really quickly, and the doors opened and Prabhupada took darshan. He sat in his Vyasasan. He was on his way going to or from Mayapur because there were about 10 sannyasis around his Vyasasan, standing next to him. So as soon as he sat in his Vyasasan before class, he called us up, my husband and I, pujaris, and he said, thank you very much. And while we were offering our obeisances, he said something which we didn't hear when sannyasi told us afterwards, that he said, be blessed. So when we heard that, we felt, wow, our life is perfect. The Guru is giving us his blessings. But then, of course, the next day, we realized, well, okay, we got it yesterday, now today we have to earn the blessings again. It's not like, okay, you got the blessings and you can retire from spiritual life. Oh, I got the blessings of my spiritual master, and now I can just sit and be happy and do nothing. No. You have to work hard and earn the blessings every day of your life. You have to earn the blessings of the spiritual master. So another time, I was in Bombay. Srila Prabhupada was there. I dressed Radharani that day. And that day, Prabhupada said, "Oh, Radharani is very beautiful today." So he was always encouraging us. And I went on I don't know how many, at least one morning walk I went. But I was late and I was running to catch up in Juhu Beach. So Prabhupada, he was with his devotees walking. And I caught up and he stopped everything, turned around, and Hare Krishna. So I felt wonderful, that he was not too busy, he wasn't just, okay, walking, okay, here's some Mataji. No, who am I? I'm just some, out of thousands of devotees, just some lady. But he had the time to acknowledge me, that I was there. So we always felt like that with Srila Prabhupada, that he always had time for us, and he always appreciated our service. So one thing with me is I have this intelligence where I was trying to figure out Srila Prabhupada. So on the morning walk, logically, I was trying to figure out now, he's over 70, he's like 75, I'm 25. How is he walking so fast? And how come I can't keep up with him? And how come I'm tired and he's not? I was trying to figure it out, but I could have never figured it out. Some devotee said his feet weren't touching the ground, so I don't know. I didn't notice. I didn't notice, but Guru Das tells a story about in 1969, Prabhupada was walking in John Lennon's estate, and he saw there was one worm crawling across the path, and he was sure, said that worm, Prabhupada's going to walk on that worm. And so he was going to move it, but then he didn't have time, and so then Prabhupada stepped on the worm, and then he kept going, and Guru Das looked and he saw the worm kept going like this. He didn't get squashed. So then he noticed, oh, Prabhupada's not making any imprints in the grass. And he's not the only one, other devotees noticed that too. That Prabhupada, he didn't make footprints. And one of my godsisters also, she was a new devotee. She went to a program with Prabhupada. He was on a stage, so she offered obeisances. She put her hands right in front where Prabhupada was going to walk. Prabhupada walked on her hands to get up the stairs. She didn't feel anything. And then another devotee came and walked, and she felt great pain on her hands. Someone came behind Prabhupada to go on the stage. So, yeah, he was beyond our understanding. Even when he was giving class, we would just watch his every movement and try. I was trying to figure out. And when I saw Prabhupada, it looked to me like he was not exactly in the earth, not in this dimension. It looked kind of like you were watching a movie. It's like a movie projected sometimes. Just like he was there, but he wasn't exactly there like we were there. So I would always, again, try and figure out, oh, how is Prabhupada? How is he there? How is he? And I never could figure out with my intelligence. And then I realized you cannot understand the Guru by intelligence, but by service. Service attitude, by loving service. So then I tried to develop more devotion for Srila Prabhupada. And that's true for spiritual life, that it's not by an intellectual understanding or mental understanding that you can make progress, but it's by service to the spiritual master, servant of the servant especially. I was telling a story in yesterday's class in the Toronto temple, in the main temple. Story about one man in Juhu Beach, Bombay, who built rooms for all of us to live on top of the tenants' buildings because we were living so austerely. So One day he came to see Prabhupada covered with cement and dust. And Prabhupada said to him, just as you are building rooms for my devotees, my disciples, to live in this place, so Krishna is building rooms for you in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. And he said to Prabhupada, oh, I'm so sinful, how will I go back to Godhead? Prabhupada said, that I will see, you don't worry about that. So if you serve the servant, then Krishna is very pleased. If you want to please Krishna, serve his devotee. Krishna will be very pleased. So that was one example of how this man, he was serving Prabhupada's disciples, and Prabhupada was pleased. Prabhupada was so pleased. When he wasn't even serving Prabhupada, he was serving Prabhupada's disciples. So Krishna is pleased when you serve the devotees. That's one thing we learned. Now, the question may arise, now Prabhupada has left, so how can we relate to him now? And you do have here, you're very fortunate, you have his deity form. He is non-different from his deity. There are many examples. One of my god sisters had a deity of Prabhupada. She was traveling on the airplane with her Prabhupada deity. And there was an empty seat next to her, so she put Prabhupada on the empty seat, put the seatbelt on him. And then she fell asleep, and she woke up and she saw there was a blanket on her and a blanket on Prabhupada. The stewardess had put on the both of them. And then they came time for dinner, and the stewardess says, so what would you like? And she said, vegetarian. And he? What would he like? So yeah, and she had many experiences like that with her traveling with her. He was this size, and they were saying, oh, he's very small, your guru. I said, yes. And so, yeah, in airports, one time, a man came up to her and said, he's the one, he's the one. She said, which one? And he said, yeah, I saw him in my dream last night, and he said he's going to meet me tomorrow and give me a book, Bhagavad Gita. And she said, well, she had her own personal Gita. She, I guess, yes, okay, well, here's the book. Here's the book he promised you. And so, yeah, Prabhupada is here if we want to see him, to communicate with him. His books also, he's there. In his books, his purports are his emotional. You can find him there. You can see the videos of him and how he walked and how he ate and sat. The way he ate was so amazing. He never touched his fingers to his mouth because that's muchi. He would go like this. He would throw it in, dollarized chapati, like this. And he would, never fail. Devotees would try and... we couldn't imitate Prabhupada at all, no. And they, try to drink, some of us can do like this now, but sometimes I try that, and especially when I travel. And one time I did that, and I got my passport wet. And it was in Germany, and the guy was so upset that my passport was wet and he couldn't put it in his machine. But anyway, we cannot imitate him. So one time I was feeling separation from Prabhupada. I was in Vrindavan, and I was in is it time for Archie?
Up to you.
Pardon me?
It's up to you.
8:31.
It's up to me. Well,
Fine.
8.
We can go till 8:15.
8:15. Okay, I'll just go a few more minutes. I don't think it will go to 8:15. So, I was in Vrindavan. I had done service in Calcutta, Pujari 7 years, book distribution 7 years. I was a mother for 7 years, and my son went to Gurukul. Now I was in Vrindavan and I was praying, okay, what service am I supposed to do now? And in the meantime, while I was trying to figure out, I was just reading the books, because that's what I like to do. After 3 months of reading the books, I realized, oh, I think I have to share what I read. And so, but I needed some confirmation. Of course, I went to the astrologer, said, yes, research, teaching, preaching, and then and the devotees were encouraging me also to speak. And then I went, but I said, no, I need some confirmation. And in my job also, it came to me, yes, and now I have to preach and teach. So I thought, I need confirmation from Srila Prabhupada. So I went to Prabhupada's Samadhi. At that time, there was a tape playing of Srila Prabhupada. I heard his voice. And Prabhupada said, do you think the deity is made of stone? I looked up, I said, no, Prabhupada, you're here, you're here. Do you think the acharyas are so foolish that they worship stone? I said, no, Prabhupada, you're here. I said, but I need some more personal instruction. So I got the inspiration to go to his house in Vrindavan. In his house, they would have a letter in front of him every day. And I thought, okay, maybe there's some instruction for me in his letter. I went, and sure enough, the letter said, now you are one of my senior disciples. So I'm depending on you. You have learned the art of Krishna consciousness, so you should teach it purely to others. So I took that, okay, confirmation of what I have understood from chanting japa and reading his books. That I must, that was in 1994, 20 years ago. At that time, there was no facility for me to teach. The temple ladies were not speaking, giving class. And in the VIH, there was Bhakti Shastri, but it was only for men. There was no ladies Bhakti Shastri until 1997. So I thought, well, how am I going to teach? Then I thought, oh, well, I have to do it. It's Prabhupada's order. So I just started in my room outside, having Bhagavad Gita class. But then the chowkidars, they got upset. You can't bring people here, this is a private house. I said, okay. So then for the rest of the year, I was teaching on the roof of the Krishna Balaram guest house. Then after 1 year, I got a place behind MVT, and for 2 years I was teaching there, where I still live. I still live there now. After 3 years of just teaching Bhagavad Gita, then the VIH started Bhakti Shastri for women. And they asked me to teach. And after 1 year, I was traveling in Europe about teaching, and just, so sometimes, that's again, I was pushed by Srila Prabhupada to take the next step. The first time he pushed me was to join, and then he was always pushing me actually, and this time it was to leave Vrindavan and preach. And so I feel like Prabhupada is still here, he's still guiding me. And as he said in Mayapur, that now we will write many books together. So I've written 12 books. And I feel like that, what he said, we will write books together, that came true as well. That second prediction. And so we have Bhagavad Gita at a glance, Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance. Picture for every verse of Gita, picture for every chapter of Bhagavatam. And now I started a picture for every verse of Bhagavatam. First 7 cantos are finished. And I'm writing as I traveled. 8th canto I wrote in Mayapur, 9th canto will be writing in Germany, and 10th canto, first book in Ireland this year while I'm traveling. So 10 more books before I die, and then I can leave in peace. Or live in peace. So all of you also try to serve Srila Prabhupada, serve the devotees, and that will make him happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Amazing. So we can have more of Mother's association. Mother's going to be here in the GT area until 9th of April, including a wonderful PowerPoint presentation that Mother's going to present on Ram Navami at ISKCON Toronto, Tuesday evening. So Mother has to leave now because Mother's been giving wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam classes every morning. And tomorrow morning also is the next Srimad Bhagavatam class. So for those of you who can make it to Toronto Temple tomorrow, that will be wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.